distinguished panelists, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the joint webinar of Japan International Cooperation Agency JICA and Center for Development and Diplomacy CDD, Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement NICE, Nepal Policy Institute NPI, and Nepal Migration Unity Network NEMUN. The theme of today's webinar is Good Governance and International Cooperation, and we have very distinguished speaker on this very important topic. I, on behalf of the organizers, would like to welcome all the speakers and all the participants. Before we start, let me set a few housekeeping rules to keep the webinar in order. All our speakers are made co-host, which means you can unmute yourself whenever you wish to speak, share the slide yourself, and also record the program if necessary. Each speaker will have maximum 15 minutes. All our participants will be in mute mode. They cannot speak to us, hence they will have to type the question in chat box or under Facebook Live. Please keep your questions short, as we'll give preference to short and sharp questions. To start the program, may I now invite Mr. Mohan Krishna Sesta, founding president of CDD and former Nepalese ambassador to France, to deliver welcome remarks.
Thank you, Pramod ji. Namaskar. Good afternoon and good evening. Dear participants at home and abroad, respected speakers, on behalf of the Center for Diplomacy and Development, Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, National Policy Institute, and Nepal Migrant Unity Network, I would like to extend my cordial greetings and welcome to all of you for attending this webinar. Kindly accept our hearty thanks also. My cordial welcome to our respected speakers also, who hold excellent credentials in the above subjects. I'm sure the presentations to be made and ensuing interactions will be very useful and educative to all of us. Dear friends, everybody knows that we need good governance for our daily life, be it in our home, offices, society, or country at large. In the lack of good governance, strifes and misunderstandings will emerge. Such situation can lead to more problems. Good governance and people's life are closely interconnected. People expect good governance to impact on their daily lives. It is therefore incumbent on government machineries to deliver efficient, corruption-free, and timely service deliveries to the general public. In the absence of good governance, people's suffering and complaints will always be on the high spiral. Democratic values and good governance have deep nexus. Leaders elected with people's votes must try to promote democratic values and good governance practices. Former US President Abraham Lincoln, as far back in mid-18th century, said, "Democracy is the rule of the people, by the people, and for the people." Countries hold good image worldwide for their governing styles. Good services to the people must be always at the center of government machinery. It then comes to our mind, what are the main ingredients for a good governance? Values, rules, regulations, accountability, responsibility, and transparency are the main pillars of the good governance. Discriminatory policies can never lead to good governance. At the micro level, if parents pursue the discriminatory policies to their children, revolt naturally emanates, and a good family may tumble down and be separated. Similarly, in a society, if accountability and transparent policies are not pursued and implemented, such society cannot prosper to help the country. Moreover, if a government does not pursue value-based, rule-based, accountable and transparent policies, such country may be deemed as a pariah state by the international community. Governments must take care of their citizens at all times, and especially in such a pandemic situation. It is therefore clear that we need good governance in each part and parcel of personal and national life. Good governance serves as a good platform for a society and a country to prosper. Dear friends, these days, as all of us know that good governance and international cooperation is intertwined and tied. Developed countries provide official development assistance to developing countries for financing in their development activities. It thus helps to execute many projects intended for socio-economic development. If the money to be received from developed countries also come from the taxpayers of the concerned countries, such money must therefore be spent on very accountable ways bound by the strict rules and regulations. There are many instances in the developing countries where the scent of corruption led to the cancellation of the projects. As a controlling mechanism, a system of international audit and corruption index are also in use at the international level. Such mechanism shows how a country fares in accountability. Some developed countries like Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark have always emerged as top-notch countries for accountability. These countries, therefore, have always remained in the top position in the corruption index. Institutions like Transparency International makes annual index on corrupt practices worldwide and distinguish countries on the basis of accountability. Naturally, least corrupt countries have a better position to attract more development aid. Good governance and international cooperation are two sides of the coin. With these few words, I once again thank you all and hope that you'll enjoy our webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohan sir, for your remarks. The first speaker of today's event is Ms. Noriko Matsuda. Ms. Noriko Matsuda is Good Governance Advisor at JICA, Nepal. She's a public policy specialist with academic certificates for Bachelor's in Arts from Osaka University of Foreign Studies and MA from Manchester University, and with professional experience as a diplomat of Japanese government in charge of international cooperation in education, JICA Education Policy Advisor in Dominican Republic and Ghana, and lecturer of Tokuha University. Currently, she is working for JICA Nepal office from April 2018. Ms. Matsuda, the floor is yours, and you have 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And dear Mr. Chairperson of the webinar, and the respected co-organizer, and distinguished speakers, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity. I am Noriko Matsuda, Project Formulation Advisor of JICA Nepal office. My job here is to explore how the governance in Nepal can be strengthened and plan and implement JICA's cooperation program of governance. And this photo here is a Nepalese member of the parliament visited Japan. They are in front of the Japan's Diet building. And it's a process of our cooperation for drafting the civil code of Nepal. Today's presentation, I have 3 items. First, I touch about Japan's experience in modernizing the country as a background to JICA's cooperation of the governance, so that I can wrap up. To start with Japan's experience, Japan closed the country in the medieval era for more than 200 years from 1639. There are 2 reasons. First is for national security, the then government needed to prevent influence and interactions of foreign countries such as Spain and Portuguese, the era of discovery, and those countries send Christian missionaries as a spearhead of colonization, as in the case of Latin America or Asian country. The government didn't want that. The second reason is to maintain orders of medieval society. The Edo shogunate introduced a class system that is very close to caste system of Nepal, in the sense that classes were defined by profession. And Christianity includes a sort of being equal under the God, and which contradict the government system. And so the government didn't want that neither. But the transition came in the mid-19th century when the Western power came to Japan and forced to open the country. And they forced to sign the Treaty of Commerce, and that included problematic provision of consular jurisdiction. In that jurisdiction, foreigners who even committed crimes in the territory of Japan were judged and punished by their rules, not by Japan's rules. And the Western powers said, well, Japan may have regulations, they are not modern, they are far from Western standard, so no proper modern laws, proper judgment cannot be done. So the clause is quite unfair, and the Meiji government saw an urgent need to modernizing the society, country, with a special focus of reviewing the legal system. So that was the force to shift Japan toward modern society. There are some initiatives of the government. For example, the scholarship. Japanese government provide scholarships for young and promising Japanese so that they go to foreign countries and learn the key subject such as law, education, medicine, and engineering, the subject which serves basis for modernizing the society. In addition, Japanese government hired foreign advisors and as in many fields, but as far as the development of modern laws is concerned, I have to mention Mr. Boissonnato. He's a French legal expert, and the then Minister of Law in Japan invited him. And he is often regarded as a father of modern laws of Japan, thanks to his great contributions. And thanks to him and others, Japan developed the first civil code in 1896. Actually, it took more than 25 years. And during this long period, this civil code managed to adjoin both essence of Western legal system and Japanese tradition, value, and customs without any contradictions. So tailor-made really takes time. One anecdote is that currently there is an academic field of comparative jurisprudence. It's to study the one country's legal system in a wider framework of culture or history and make international comparisons. And this comparative jurisprudence is most advanced in Japan in the world because of this experience. So let's go to the Japan's cooperation on governance. As an understanding of the background, we understand that Nepal became a federal republic country recently after it was Hindu monarchy for 240 years, big transition. JICA compiled a country analysis paper, JCAP, last year, and we identified some of the main challenges that governance of the new Nepal faces. That include the need for development of modern laws, improving administration services, and eliminating corruptions. And today I focus on the need for the modern laws. To address this challenge, JICA provides so many corporations, activities, and projects, but today I focus on the support for drafting the civil code and scholarship. JICA's cooperation on the drafting of the civil code is in a way, it's a support for modernization of the Mulki Ain, because Nepal has the Mulki Ain, that's a country code that was functional for 165 years. The Mulki Ain is based on the sort of Hindu and caste system, but the new Nepal, which is a federal republic, need to modernize that. And the Nepal government decided to dissolve this Mulki Ain into 5 major codes, including civil code. And the government took step-by-step approaches, and the process took more than 9 years until this 5 codes, including civil code, was enforced in August 2018. So really, tailor-making takes time, and always we said, we need new bottle for new wine. Now I want to touch the importance and the significance of the civil code of Nepal. I'm not a lawyer, so I will quote what Professor Matsuda of Keio University says. He is also the leader of JICA advisory group, legal advisory group for Nepal. He said, the civil code is often regarded as the constitution of civil society. It stipulates rights and duties of citizens and clarifies the rules of dispute resolutions. The civil code serves as a basis for maintaining peace and activating economy in society, indeed. And this is the cover of the Mulki Civil Code of Nepal. It's really beautiful blue cover. And actually, this is the first unified civil code in South Africa and Asia. I'm very proud. And this civil code has a vast area of provisions. For example, family law. its provision defines the marriage and divorce, for example. And the second chapter of property laws defines what kind of properties to be protected by law. And of course, the contract law serves basis for any economic activities. So civil code is important, significant, and very closely related to our daily lives. Of course, there are many challenges in the operation of civil code, but today I want to touch very urgent challenges in the understandings that laws are under the continuous revisions. There are not such things that are perfect or permanent law, so we need to revise regularly. There are several challenges, but today I will touch very urgent challenges that we think. First is the understanding of this new civil code should be promoted among all the stakeholders in Nepal. To start with, JICA supported to organize seminars for judges and lawyers. Also, we believe the cases of judgments under the civil code should be accumulated for a future revision of the civil code. We are starting to support that too. Oh, this is a map for the recipient countries of JICA legal cooperation. As you see, we extend our legal support in many countries. As far as Nepal is concerned, our cooperation covers drafting of civil code, improvement of trial practice, and dispatchment of legal advisors. And I'm happy to tell you that our fifth legal advisor, Ms. Miha Isoi, is arriving to Nepal very soon. Now the scholarship. JICA provides a variety of scholarship programs. For example, JDS program, it's a full scholarship for young leaders to get graduate degrees in top Japanese universities. And the JDS program started in Nepal in 2015. So far, a total of 122 fellows received a scholarship for master and PhD courses. In addition, JICA provides a variety of long-term training, again, for the graduate degrees in top Japanese universities. This is to meet the growing demand for higher education in worldwide. We are in the era of information-based society, where information, rather than manufacturing, creates more wealth or values. So we all need to keep running and updating ourselves. In that sense, Japan saw increased number of international students. As this graph shows, there is a sharp increase. In the year of 2018, the number of foreign students in Japan became about 300,000, of which Japanese government provides scholarship for about 10,000 foreigners, and of which JICA provides about 20%. Now it's a wrap up. Japan modernized the country by self-help initiatives. Modernization of a country, in a way, is an internationalization. And to address this challenge, Japanese government provided scholarship for young Japanese so that they can go to study in foreign country and come back to contribute the country's development. Also, Japanese government hired foreign advisors from its own budget. Secondly, modernization of law was the key for Japan's development. Japan was the first to become industrialized country among non-Western countries. And with that experience, JICA extends legal support to many countries, including Nepal. And now we are era of international cooperation. And I, as an advisor, technical person, I believe that knowledge is very important. Knowledge on good governance in various contexts or countries is important. Also, know-hows are important. Know-how, like what goes well or what goes wrong in which condition is really important. But above that, I believe expertise for adjustment or translation of simple knowledge or know-how according to the needs and aspiration of the recipient country is much more appreciated. There are no such things as one formula fits all. Tailor-made is needed, and we all need good adjustment. And I believe, in another word, there also are the demonstration of JICA or Japan's for the respect for the recipient countries, ownership, and self-help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Matsuda, for the wonderful presentation. May I now invite Professor Tulsi Dharel. Professor Dharel is a professor of international marketing at Continental College, Toronto, Canada. He was elected as an academic governor at Continental College, which is a distinction of its own. He achieved his PhD degree in international marketing from India. His specialty lies in the concept of networking, and networking. Earlier, he served as faculty member of Wilfrid Laurier University, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. He has received several awards, including Intellectual Networking Award from JVS Toronto, Professional Immigration Network of TRIEC in 2012. He's active in promoting Nepalese cultural activity in Toronto since last 10 years. He served as a chairperson of the Nepali cultural event in Nathan Phillips Square in Toronto. Last year, he received Asian Canadian Award by Canadian Multicultural Council. Professor Dharel, the floor is yours, and you also have 15 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Good morning to everyone. It is my pleasure to participate in this global webinar. Right now I'm here in Toronto, Canada. The time is early morning. So you might see my face is not that much fresh, that I just wake up in the middle of night actually. Once it is done, I will go back to my bed around till 9 o'clock. That's my normal time. So this is again, come back to the agenda, but I was actually expecting I might gonna go a little after a few distinguished guests might gonna talk, and then it would be really good for me to get a lot of information from them, and I borrow some of the information and I make my own presentation, but it is good. I came early then. So the topic is good governance and international cooperation. And whereas my expertise is international business, international marketing, somehow I will try my best to bring the agenda topic and my expertise. I don't talk in that area where I do not have any knowledge or any experience. So that is why I may not be going too close to the governance side, but what I have seen, I have compared with many countries, and most of the time I might gonna bring Canadian perspectives, what Canadian government have done, what Canadian people have expectations, what the politicians, mostly in this country, are busy or there may kind of more activities on that part. I will discuss on that part basically. So for now, I just want to go for the basic part. Is many times people talk about the leadership is matters. So leadership matters means who is leading to the particular organizations. If you cannot be a role model, then you don't expect your follower will follow you, or they follow the rules and regulation rather than you. So if you don't do that, you don't get other person, you're behind people will come and they follow the right directions. It is up to you. And in our case, I might going to be a little critical, especially in Nepalese prospectus, what's going on in Nepal. It's not today, it's not yesterday. Since the very beginning of our country, it might be the problem for developing countries, but not all developing countries might have the same situation. Sometimes some developing countries, they have done really good. Maybe the last decade, their government was so corrupted, but now they have corrected it. and they are moving towards the emerging market. And their economy is gone so far better than if you compare with 20 years, 15 years back. I can give you so many examples in Asian countries. South Korea is a good example for that. Though you have seen a lot of those president of that countries, the past president of that countries was charged for the corruption. So this is why when you have a good system, not only leadership, when the system is very strong enough, no one can break, even the leader. Recently, what happened in the USA, a lot of people might gonna bring that examples. It's not only the developing countries or poor countries have this situation. Even in the USA, you have seen the, the we can say now, the past president. Under his guidance, what he just says one word, go to the Capitol Hill. He had never expected that that would happen. So this is why the leadership always matters, how the leader is guiding to their followers and how the leader is trying to be a role model. That part is important. The South, I mean, what you call this, Singapore, South Korea, even sometimes Thailand also consider that. Even Thailand has, Khagendraji is from Thailand, he knows better than me. But based on the news, I have seen that the Thailand, the political, disturbance, it is, you have seen many times, a lot of those, the people are on the street, but it's still, the country's economy is going up. The economy is not collapsed. So here, my point is here, it is saying that it is not the person, it is the system too. When your system is strong enough, no matter who is coming and no matter who is going. That's why in the business world, we used to tell to our students, say, people may come, people may go, but I go forever. What does that mean? The ruler might gonna come. Many people might gonna change their sitting positions, one person to another person. But when you have a strong policy, as if, let's say, at the aeroplane, the jumbo jet, you are flying from Tokyo to New York, there might be so many co-pilots. They switch their duties, but they know what is their destination is. Are we doing that way? Every time our leadership, once they come to the power, they think that person is the beginner, and that person doesn't want to carry on what the good things have been doing since last many years. They start that as if that this is the person who created the nation, who created the system, and he started, and he tell to all his followers to follow what his policy is. It is not like you, it is your system. If the system is moving from the day one, like a Japanese politics, I don't want to criticize, but what Japan has, sometimes the government is not that strong enough. But JICA's policy to Nepal and so many developing countries, they never change. That is called system must be established. Once the system is established, you can a little bit correct it, but you don't drastically change. So the good governance is kind of that. The international cooperation, what we talk, maybe for Japan, maybe for Korea, maybe for European countries, maybe for Canada and America, international cooperation for them, they might need more kind of influencing situation, like they might want to go for not running for the financial support from anybody, like a Nepal case. Nepal or all South Asian countries, the developing countries, emerging market countries, without having a strong international cooperation, their economy cannot be developed, cannot be achieved. Our case means I am taking example of Nepal. On behalf of Nepal, I'm talking our case means, I'm not saying Canadian case. Our case is in Nepal. Our international cooperation, where are we? When the one project comes, one big ideas comes, American, that's a grant, MCI, what do you call MCC, right? Um, I really cannot give that answer for that. But that MCCI, since last 6 months or year, we've been listening that one leader says yes, other leader says no. What does that mean? That is a good example whether they have a really good, strong view on international cooperation or not. I give you one example as international marketers. In Nepal, we have not seen Kathmandu. Many of you have been in Kathmandu, you are in Kathmandu. Unlike New York, New Delhi, I'm saying, New Delhi or Mumbai or Dhaka or neighboring cities, I'm talking, Beijing and Shanghai, Karachi and Islamabad, compare with Kathmandu. How many, the franchise business, the international, let's say fast food industry, let's say McDonald's and KFC, you have a KFC, I guess, and Starbucks, and so many of those international, those global franchise businesses. How many do we have? I was I was reading article. Still, I think you have in Kathmandu. It's been a long time. I don't know whether that business is running or not. There were a KFC. That KFC was locked down, and some those people, those political activists with a hidden agenda or their personal agenda, they came to the store and they locked the store. There was a labor dispute, something happened, and permanently, maybe right now it might have been open, I don't know, but I'm bringing some examples. All the international interested companies, they look, they observe, they see the situations. If they see they have put the fire in the next door, the other person would not go there. They think this place is danger, don't go there, because the government would not protecting. Government and the opposition people have so many, their activists. In our case in Nepal, it might be a little bit, like a too strong, my word is, we have more political activists, rajnitik karyakarta. We have more than the general public. Every time I listen the news, Congress ko karyakarta, Communist ko karyakarta, and Sarvasadhan. Who are the more powerful people? The Sarvasadhan. The Sarvasadhan people are always less important, and the political leaders, those very kind of grassroots level leader, these people have a more power, their voice, and they come to the business. They go to the factory industry, like some international multinational companies, they have manufacturing plant in Nepal. They just go and start disturbing that. I recently heard about the 5-star hotel has the same situation, and those international agencies having the same situation. When that situation happens, then international cooperation means they want to see the safe places. They don't go to what do you call, Kabul and Kandahar. They see that that place is too dangerous. They go to Shanghai and Beijing and New York and New Delhi and Mumbai, because they want to make sure that this place is safe. The government is protecting us. The people are supporting to the international, those companies. International cooperation not always come from the government side. I never happened. Government cannot contribute that much, maybe 10, 20%. The rest is the international business, the FDI, those companies. Do we have that? Our structure, the foundations, we do not. It is very true. Maybe the speakers might have a reservation on my point, but I said that if you do not have a clear the playground, nice playground, the players, no matter how good you play, you cannot play. Similarly, international cooperation means international investment. Why do not have that much international FDI in Nepal? Because you have not created that type of environment, that type of healthy, the best place. So this is why I wanna talk a little bit about the corruption rate is not a personal problem. This prime minister, other minister, other political leader, other officers, because we do not have a strong the institutionalizations. We have not given any strong punishment to those people. We protect them. And people are, just those leaders are running for their own people rather than to the country's interest. So here, the Scandinavian countries, I don't say 100% countries are, if you go to the Transparency International, no single country has 100% the least corrupted or no corruptions. But if you compare the Scandinavian countries and Singapore and New Zealand and Canada, these are the countries you see, those countries are considered least corrupted country. I want to compare with Canadian perspective right now. Canada, I am right now in my city, Toronto City, we have a state of emergency. It is not those scary situations, but the government want to control. They are sending all the support to the people, and the government has suggested to the people that don't go out. You get everything, whatever you want. So that type of support, the government must give the guarantee. Do we are giving that type of guarantee? Our political leaders are asking people come to the street rather than they say, don't come to the street, please stay home. Nobody cares. The leader cares for their own positions because this is not their fault. This is a system fault. And we have that situations. So now let me tell you one thing. If you have a money, you can go anywhere. There are so many countries are welcoming you. Do business. You go any countries. Now nowadays you have seen that Canada, America, and Australia, New Zealand. Why people are moving to those countries? Not only those countries, even I have seen like a Japan, there are so many multinational companies, and the Middle East. If you compare with Dubai and Kathmandu, go to Google search and see 20 years ago, 30 years ago, how was Dubai and where Dubai is right now. And they are inviting whole global investment in Dubai. And Dubai government says, we will give you the good governance. This is not beautiful place. This is the, desert. And plus 40 degree is the temperature in the summertime. And unlike Kathmandu, unlike Pokhara, unlike the close to Himalayas, they have nothing to see. But their people flow is going. So many people. I was so surprised the other day. I was checking Qatar. I had to present some presentation at the same time. When I see Qatar country, 20% is Qataris, 20% are Indian, and 13% are Nepali. What does that mean? 13% of the people means almost like they have like a 600,000. No, 1.6 million. 1.6 million out of 1.6 million, they have 13% are Nepali. They are inviting so many people. If you have an arm, like let's say you are labor, you get a job. You have a money, you can invest here. You get a good return. So they are inviting everyone because the reason is they have a good governance, good system. When you have a good system, the development is not too far. Nepal can be Singapore, Nepal, I don't say Japan, but Nepal can be Korea. 30 years ago, Korea, their economy you can see, even Chinese economy you can see, after Deng Xiaoping came to the power, they opened the door to the global investment. Do we have that type of environment? Do we have that type of system? When we make that type of system, when the leaders, not one leader, not one political party, the system is strong enough. People are following only the leader. They think politics is their final destinations. It is not. In my school where I teach, I have a MP, member of parliament. She was an MP. She came to teach, and I asked her, because I have a Nepalese blood. No, I said, you were MP. Why did you come? She says, you know what? This is better than MP. Almost I get the same money. Why should I be MP? You know, MP is too much. You have to travel to Ottawa and Toronto. I have a kids, I have a family. This job is better. Teach, come home and meet your friends. She said, almost I have the same money I get if I teach, then why should be there? In our case in Nepal, trust me, if you were MP, you think that going to back to the other job, oh man, I can't. That's why they never be retired. Whereas civil servant, on the middle of their growing their time, like Mohan Krishna Sirsaji is a very good friend of mine. He and I is the same age. He's already retired and he has so much energy, so much experience. Where's he gonna, he's gonna use his experience. He's not allowed to continue his service. And he's just gone to this type of NGOs and helping to community volunteer work. Whereas a politician, they never retire, whether people like them or not. They have a big scandal and they ask their own people, please support me, close your eye and just support me. There was a guy who was talking about those corruption, you know, they were kind of Lenden, and his own voice was released by the media. You know what happened? Still he's active, he's proud. I'm gonna go back to my district, the election, I'm gonna, I know most probably he's gonna win. Where is good governance? What we have a system, we protect him. Because the bunch of people are supporting him, no matter he's wrong or right, who cares? If there were only people instead of karyakarta, then he might be punished or he might be disqualified from the politics. I try to bring this some examples. A lot of civil servants, similar like Mohan Krishnaji and many other people, they are heavily qualified. They have so much experience, but they are forced to out from their own job when the so fruitful and fertile situations, they cannot use their knowledge. Whereas the politician never get retired, no matter how corrupted that guy is. Similarly, as I said, I had a professor called Ram Prasad Rajbahak. Many of you may not know him. He was one of the most respected marketing professors in Tribhuvan University many years back. 30 years ago, I studied, my MBA was from Tribhuvan University. That time, his name is Ram Prasad Rajbahak. 2 or 3 times he became minister during the Panchayat time, I guess. But I'm just saying the model. This guy was a minister. When his term is over, he come back to the class. And we said, oh, Bhutpuru Mantri, sir, why did you come? You were the minister. He said, I was minister for 6 months or 1 year, but I'm professor for a long period of time. He just come and he doesn't drive his own car. He just use his those minivan crowded minivan. He's standing and we are sitting. When we said, sir, please have a seat. He said, no, you are a guest because you have a 2-year study time. And once it is done, you go, but I am always here. So I give you a chance to sit. I'm standing in that crowded, those minibus. So this is why I'm saying you have to create the role model yourself. Do we have that type of leader in our country? How you expect good governance? If you ask this guy who were corrupted, those political leaders, bring this in the webinar, he's gonna say better than me, but he never gonna practice that. So this thing happened. So I have nothing more to say more than that. I will be happy if there is some questions on that. Again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'll be more than happy if anybody has a comment on my remarks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Tulsi Dharel. The next speaker is Mr. Pratap Kumar Pathak. Mr. Pratap Kumar Pathak is public policy and governance specialist. He is former Secretary of Government of Nepal and he holds master degree in public administration from Tribhuvan University. Currently, he is course coordinator and faculty head at Armed Police Force Command and Staff College that is affiliated to Tribhuvan University. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Respected colleagues, distinguished speakers, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to participate and share my experiences on good governance and international cooperation. It's a very interesting topic for discussion in the contemporary world. I express my deep appreciation to the respected speakers who have already shared us for sharing with inspiring notes on international cooperation and good governance. Yes, good governance has become the key international cooperation priority for 3 decades. From the 1990s, we are hearing good governance and the role of international cooperations. And the international cooperations has been used as a tool to yield a powerful development dividend also. And good governance is central to delivering the overarching objective of reducing poverty through better government. This has been continued since 8th plan also in Nepal. And the international cooperation has instrumental role in building capable, responsive governance, no doubt. Especially in the field of poverty reduction, governability enhancements for enabling state, human rights and social justice, economic prosperity, and building Nepal's position in the global platform. So within the framework of Paris principles, the international cooperation is based on national ownership, alignment, harmonization, managing for results, and mutual accountability. So one thing I want to add that good governance is determined by several factors. One is the legitimacy of the government. Second is a people-centered political system. And also most important is transparency, basically the access to information for the common people, accountability and predictability of the state delivery, and also the rule of law and the regulatory quality of the governance, effective delivery of citizen services, and right-based development to respond citizen rights, to respect and to fulfill. And also it is based on the meaningful collaboration between the partners of development. So good governance in present context, good governance has become the most challenging contemporary issue in international cooperation, no doubt. And international cooperation in negative connotation has been the key source of corruption because of high cost cooperation. And also in terms of international cooperation, in my assessment, there are 2 streams of issues. Those need to be discussed in today's webinar. One is the good governance as the basic criteria for international cooperation, objectives and minimum conditions on the basis of. So good governance in international cooperation, one stream. Another stream is use of international cooperation for meaningful performance and results, ensuring anti-corruption and accountability, and that means international cooperation for good governance. So these are the two streams of discussion. Why good governance in international cooperation? This is a critical question. And ironically speaking, there are critical reasons. Because international cooperation, one aspect is it is the driving value of international cooperation dynamics, good governance, driving value. Second is the role of international cooperation in anti-corruption interventions, because corruption is the major obstacle to development and governance, which discourages from three critical points. One is the investment. Good governance is required for enabling the investment environment, and also addressing reduced economic growth, and also building capability for effective citizen delivery. And also the international cooperation, why good governance in international cooperation? One is because of addressing or having solution with a weak development management, and also addressing inequality and marginalization of the poor for social justice and inclusion, which is one of the critical objectives of new constitution of Nepal. And also for enhancing the legitimacy of the state with accountable and transparent systems, and strengthening the political economy of the state, reinforcing SDG, Sustainable Development Goals attainment. The government of Nepal has already formulated a strategy for 2016 to 2030 for realizing the SDG goals, SDG 2030, and support strategic positioning of the international economic order. So international cooperation can contribute from various points of thinking and action. From Nepal's experience, so I want to share some of the Nepal's experience regarding good governance and international cooperation. The Nepal's 15th plan has the vision of national prosperity, national prosperity and happiness of the citizens. And the plan has indicated that the international cooperation as key instrument of Nepal with forward moving strategies for realizing the graduation effort from LDC to middle income country. And also it is the experience, the evaluation report of NPPR, National Portfolio Performance Review, has continued reflections for a couple of years on the effectiveness in mobilization of international development cooperation to Nepal. Because of weak development governance, it is becoming weaker and weaker. Because let's see national pride projects. In 6 months this year, the capital expenditure is just 15%. And also the same, and even less in national pride projects. So delivery of development is becoming weaker and weaker because of the missing link between the good governance and international cooperation. There is a critical gap between constitutional liberalism and the governability. And in the realization of good governance and citizen rights in actual term, it is the point to observe that there is the conflict of interest between the conventional power politics and political entrepreneurship. Because of the lack of political entrepreneurship, the corruption, rampant corruption in Nepal, this is increasing, and the position of Nepal degrading. and because of the corrupt political governance. And there is one thing I want to share, that there is citizens' rights replaced by welfare regime in development. Though the constitution is totally based on a right-based framework, but the overall governance capability is based on welfare regime or charity principles. So there is overloading of rights framework in governance and development of Nepal, and critical gap between state obligation and the state capacity. So this is one of the critical issue that should be linked with the relationship between international cooperation and good governance with respect to Nepal's present position. And there is the reflection of substantive gap between the constitutional autonomy, exercise of power and accountability for results, especially the local governments. Because of federalism, local governments have become more powerful and they have more resources also, including authority. But we are observing view tower syndrome, ignoring the human development priority, which is the critical gap in governance of Nepal at present, because the constitutional body CIAA has already concluded that the local government has become the source of corruption in Nepal because of the uh, imbalance situation between the autonomy, authority, and accountability, and also capability. In anti-corruption movement, the experiences show that the driving force is substantially subsided by the restraining force because of the policy corruption impacts. And there is a pervasive tendency of lip servicing and lack of political willingness backed by the transactional leadership instead of transformative leadership. And in response, there is almost the weak role of parliament constitutional setups also. They are not performing well in driving the anti-corruption movements. And there is the derailed linkages between policy, program and budget, implementation and results. This is no logical linkage. The issues of transparency and predictability is there, and dilemma in civil society, conflict of interest in focusing on good governance or political association. And they should play the role of watchdog promoter or the receiver of international financial assistance. This is also one of the critical issues of good governance and international cooperation. And the media, one of the source of improving good governance in Nepal. This media is positional rather than principled in terms of good governance, and in the trap of professionalization versus politicization scenario with serious implications on governance. And also there is a scenario of incrementalism versus rationalism or radical system in reforming governance and the focus of international cooperation is not clear in this issue and aspect. And there is imitation versus inspiration paradox in good governance and international cooperation. And in international cooperation and so the international cooperation must be the source of inspiration rather than the tool of imitation. So international cooperation should not be the source of developmental vulnerabilities and should attack on the should promote, should reinforce redistributive justice, and should not attack the redistributive justice, and the reason for should not be the reason for dependency trap. So good governance as the cross-cutting agenda of SDG, new accountability concept for realization have been in the scene now. So there must be collective and interlinked accountability for outcomes and results. This is the conclusion from SDG implementation from various countries, because SDG has 5 major agenda. One is the prosperity agenda, second people's agenda, third peace and institutions agenda, planet agenda, and local partnerships agenda. Those are 5 years. So in a nutshell, I conclude that effectiveness in international cooperation from governance perspective should be determined by, one is the country's priority, transformation in terms of results versus stability. So stability and transformation. So the international cooperation must focus on transformation and only support build the capacity for stability. Second is supporting high performing government with focus on results. Third one is the promote redistributive justice for addressing marginalization and and poverty and all these things, and reinforce support improving accountability system, and also the most important is the sustainability, meaningful sustainability of the international cooperation dynamics. So thank you so much for once again for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences in the context of the link between international cooperation and good governance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. May I now invite the next speaker, Mr. Kedar Neupane. Mr. Kedar Neupane is Executive Board Member of Nepal Policy Institute. Mr. Neupane holds an MA in Economics from Tribhuvan University and Rockefeller Fellow Scholar at the School of Economics of University of the Philippines. He is trained as Emergency Prepared and Operations Manager at the College of Engineering Science and Disaster Preparedness and Management of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, United States. Presently retired from international service of the United Nations system, which began with the United Nations Department for Technical Cooperation for Development in 1977 as an economist attached to the Regional Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning in Juba, South Sudan. During 1982, Mr. Neupane worked for the United Nations Capital Development Fund in UNDP, Khartoum, Sudan, and United Nations CDF headquarters 1981 in New York, United States. Mr. Neupane, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pramod sir, and thank you, Ambassador Mohanji also. And thank you to my all the distinguished speakers and laureate listeners also. I think everybody is interested. I would not repeat many of the things because a lot of things have been raised. I will just share some of the conclusions what came out and my own experience in the governance. I use the word governance because early 60s, 70s, there was no such thing called good governance. As I said, I was working also in New York in UNDP. I had been to Africa, Middle East, Asia, Europe. I work in many regions. And I remember very clearly, if my memory serves me well, former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, when we were talking about the development goals, predecessors to SDGs, the word was coined, what kind of governance, good or bad? So the governance can be both, because as I said, this is the development of mid-80s, 90s, the concept of good governance came. How did it come? That's also again interesting to know because Ms. Matsuda talked about her own experience in Japan. I'll come back to that also if I have time. The foreign aids were given. It was a part of the foreign policies of most developed countries to giving to developing countries. And I still remember my days in UNDP, the foreign aids were given, but as I said, slowly, these were not used because every government started to were sovereign. We decide where the funds would be spent. So that concept led to that some indication the funds were misused, the foreign policies. And then suddenly the donor countries started giving money to NGOs. So the money were channeled as part of the foreign policy of the developed world through NGOs. And that's why after 80s, there have been lots of NGOs created around the world. And we used also a lot in the UN system. And as you already know, the JICA is also part of that. This is how it got invented, and they keep impressing because they work with the people. That was a realization that the government were in most developing countries were not working with the people because democracy was invented But then democracy meant at that time only to garner vote and to become the ruler. And the people were against. So this is why when you and former Secretary General Kofi Annan use that word as a good governance, and I little bit principle also, we all know good, that's an adjective. So my colleagues, previous speakers have already said what has to be what is the part of the governance. So good governance means ensuring respect for human rights. Right. If you don't respect human rights, the word respect comes in, not only human rights. Okay. And then comes the rule of law. We need to have a respect for rule of law. Right. That's the point. That's always the adjective. That's what we are ignoring in many places, in many countries. And strength, democracy we talked about, as I said, it was only meant for votes. But now strengthening democracy and the value of democracy is should be respected. That's how good governance comes in. And to do that, we must be transparent. So what do we do for transparent? We need to promote transparency. And to do that, what we need to do, it's not only public administration, civil administration, we should have a capacity to administer public administration for the good of the people. And these are the fundamentals which UN started preaching from the mid-80s. And this is what I was trying to say. And I know Ambassador Mohan Singh already said that there are many ingredients into that. And most of the important ingredients into the governance now comes. So inclusiveness, equity, meaning include all marginalized, my colleagues already have said, and treat people on an equity basis. That's, I will not explain because I'm sure many of us would know what they are. Like that, I said, what is rule of law? Once law is made, we need to follow. The problem, if you compare in many developing countries, in particular Nepal, we have the laws, but laws are not applied systematically across the society. And that's the problem. That's why we fail. And what happens? Governance, just like we say, we have now devolution of power. We have now federal government, provincial government, local government. I do not know whether this was built based on the consensus or top-down approach. We leaders of our nations decided that this is how it should be. And I have a feeling this has never come out from the bottoms-up approach. And we as a planner, as an economist, I would like things to be planned from the bottoms up and a little bit top-down and find a compromise. And I think that's where we are failing. So we should have a consensus-oriented system. And of course, democracy means participation, equity, equal participation, respectful participation. And the most important of all comes accountability. I will a little bit explain later what accountability means in my point of view, from economics point of view. And our performance work should be transparent. And systems should be responsible also. So there are main 8 ingredients into it fits into. So when you amalgamate all those things, then we can see what is good governance, whether it functions. That's the test. We can test from that. And of course, now Ms. Matsuda just said how Japan transformed into traditional society to modern society. What we should realize, because the context and the time, when Japan moved from one stage to another, it was a colonial era, bright era. So then the context was different. Science and technology was not there. Like now today we're connected from West, from Canada. I'm coming from Switzerland right now, and from Thailand. We are all talking. 20 years ago, we never had that. So information has gone now so widely. So what is happening now? Democracy also is having a fault line. As I said, democracy means in Nepal, we always think when we get the vote, we know we have to rule. So what we have forgotten, the rulers, democracy, it's like running a family. How do you run? In a family, there are different kind of people, children, neighbors, etc. Government unity should be taken as a family. And if we are a good governance, manage it like a company, manage it like a business. That's what we are not doing, because we are only politicizing, like my previous speaker, Mr. Pathak said, everything gets politicized in Nepal, right? So that's why it gets a problem. When you politicize everything, it doesn't work. And just like, again, Dr. Dharel also said, something very interesting. And then Ms. Matsuda also said that the civil societies alone is not the contributing factor of the good governance, because in 21st century, we need economic also. So like, I think someone said, our constitution in Nepal it's a rights-based. Rights-based means it recognizes the fundamental rights of each citizen. But the problem is in delivery. In delivery, yes, we have law, we have a constitution, but where is the guarantee of equity in economics? There is no economic priority in Nepal. Of course, we have planning, plans. These are all based on the political statement. So in Nepal right now, if you context, political leadership lacks trust. The democracy, rule of law does not work if there is no trust. So this is what we are facing. So democracy is not only about vote, as I said, it's also about trust in the leadership. It should be focused on the people. And in our own historical perspective, if we look at, are we a democrat in Nepal, every home? Is our society a very democratic? Are we very open to our own family, children, etc.? Can we not look at it? So the fault line is there. If we look at very honestly, there are problems. So that's why when you make a law, we need to see whether it can be implemented, it can be respected. So that's how we gain value, trust. And I think these are the fault lines, and that's why we're suffering. And I'm not talking only like this. Look at the 2019 Transparency International's report. What does it say? All right. When I talk to my friends about Transparency International, they say, oh, government has refused. Well, Transparency International does a survey not for government approval. It creates an international perspective. In that report, it clearly says over 60% of the people, those who were interviewed in Nepal, said executive branch of the government of Nepal is corrupt. And the second most corrupt is bureaucracy. All right. If you look at down the line, there is no institution in Nepal which does not have a perception of less than 20% of corruption. So we ranked one of the top corrupt country in the whole of Asia. So this is where what comes, because I think we have not implemented what we have said. We make speeches, we deliver a lot of things, but we lack performing. And this is where our issue comes in. So I will not go very long. I will only add one example in accountability. And we all know any government has an annual budget, right? This shows, my colleagues earlier speaker said there is a 12% only capital expenditure have been made. But let's look at what that expenditure have been made. Mostly it is salaries of the people, government employees. The projects are not done because the projects are not based on economic benefits. They are based on the pride. I'm an economist. I don't make projects based on the pride. I make an economic benefit to the people. So that's why I think our own concept is I have to glorify myself, not to give it to the people. And again, constitution is rights-based. So we always think it's like a charity. So there is a problem in our own thinking in a whole making system. So this is why it is good to say that we expect good governance, but it's difficult. In accountability, as I was saying, annual budget, if you look at several years, the audit report in Nepal, billions of Nepalese rupees have not been clarified. The accounts gets closed. There are reports have to be submitted when you get the money. That has not been given. In Nepal, they call Beruji. So if you look at that, if I correctly remember, 2018 or 6 or 7 billion Nepalese rupees have remained unliquidated, not clarified. That means people have taken the money, but we don't know what they have spent. All right. The money has been taken out from the treasury and it has been given to somebody to implement whatever the requests have been made. So doesn't it sound that 6-7 billion rupees annually if it disappears in the system? Why? Because our auditing system is also faulty, because we don't have a performance auditing system. Globally, in order to have a good performance, you need to evaluate performance of somebody whom we have entrusted with the funds. If the funds have not been measured against the performance, it has been aimed, we clearly see the fault lines. I think Nepal has a major problem because we are not willing to change anything. We need to change because we are in the 21st century. As I said, context. Japan was in the colonial era. They moved, they accepted, and they transformed themselves through education. In Nepal, the problem is also, again, we have drafted wonderful crafted constitution, probably trying to make one of the best, but we didn't realize it's difficult to implement. And I can give you one of the best constitution I've ever seen is Mongolia. You know, I used to work in Northeast Asia in Mongolia, and my colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying when they were transforming from after the fall of the communist regime in the Western Europe, they went all around looking for the best constitution. So they adapted from everything, the best. So they produced one of the best. So, but what they realized, they have difficulty implement because it is not in the way the society functions. So sometimes we need to adapt, and education has to be also improved. Like in Nepal, the education system is so poor, so low quality, everybody goes out to study. Nowadays, there are 60, 70,000 Nepalis go and study, even in schools in Australia, right? It's not only unemployment, the quality is very bad. So not only Nepal, public schools are so hopeless in Nepal, it's unimaginable. That's why private schools, private colleges come in. Those who can afford, they go outside. So we need to look at reform at the education level also, so that we can be more responsive, we can raise our issue, not only involve only in the activism. Because right now, Nepal, people have become, because of the NGOs, awareness is there. But what happens? How it should be delivered, what role should be there. If I have my, let's say, responsibility, I should also know what is my duties. It is a problem. That is why in Nepal's context, if you look at good governance, if you look at internationally, it will be very difficult because we have not adapted to our social changes. And I give you one example, even in current constitution, I know lately on the news, they say we want Hindu state, okay? But this, Nepal is a secular country according to constitution. It was superimposed by the politicians because they thought that's the best way to do it. But if you remember 2015, before finalization of the constitution, there was a referendum. 2 or 3 questions were, one of them was in the religion. I'm not a religious bias, but I'm just giving an example how it's operating. And 70% of the people have said, we want Hindu state. I have heard this from a very senior political leader in Nepal. They are still powerful, literally. When they were in Europe and America, I met them and we were talking. The agreement was, we go and ask the people what they want, but we will decide what to do. So they got the 70% people say we want Hindu state, but in the end they still wrote the constitution. So nothing was built into the constitution. Questions were asked by the people, but it was never implemented. So the trust factor is not there. It does not represent people's desperation. But to have a good governance, you need to trust the leadership. That's why they are leader. And one of our predecessor colleague always said, Nepal politics is like a profession. It's like making a lifetime job. So when you have like that, I think it's difficult to build a trust. When you don't have a trust, the word called good does not exist anymore, right? So this is where we need to see what it is. It's not always theory. It is more focused on the practitioner. I'm saying so. I have worked in, as I said, in the Middle East, Africa also. They all understand, but the problem is lack of good. The good doesn't exist. And Nepali also, we are very smart. Politicians are very smart. And our cultural affinity, our family affinity, what happens? We accept because our leaders said, but we never question that. So this is the fault in our education system also. And issue of poverty also came. Last 30 years, World Bank has been helping in Nepal to eliminate the poverty line. But our definition of poverty itself is faulty. We don't even use multi-dimensional definition of the poverty. So, and nobody's raising question. I have never heard from the public. I was involved last year with the NGO forum, the review of the SDG goals. But I realized after listening nearly 100 NGOs, they are aware of what it is, but the definition of poverty itself is not clear. So once you don't have definition itself, so how does a good governance? And what is the critical analysis takes place? So we have major problem. So maybe I will not speak a lot because I have raised a number of issues and colleagues have said, thank you, Pramodji, I give you back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It was really enlightening. Ladies and gentlemen, here we come to the end of all the presentation. We'd now like to request everyone to drop their question. We are opening the floor for discussion. Please share your question in the chat box. As we have already received some of the question, let me share it to the speaker. And the first question is, it's to all the speaker. How do you look at the case of Nepal? Many countries provide huge assistance for rule of law and good governance. Do you think they have been able to install good governance in Nepal? Maybe we'll take one question at a time. So we can go in the same order. So the first speaker, may I request Madam Matsuda to give a remark first?
Thank you very much for the important questions. And first, I want to touch the issue of corruption first, and because many speakers touched about this corruption, and corruption is really a significant issue in Nepal currently. And well, I understand that after the introduction of federalism in Nepal, the number of reporting cases of corruption to CIA increased. And I believe it's really alarming. Nepal got federalism, the new system, by abolishing the old system of monarchy, and after 10 years of internal turmoil. And I believe now public trust to new system is at stake. If general public thinks that federalism or new system is unfair, what will that lead to? That's what we worried about. And I want to come back to the importance of rule of law that JICA is supporting. It's really a combination. Include the development of democratic laws comes first, and good operation of laws, and the people's compliance with the laws, of course, and the capacity development of CIA. So it's a complex, but all should come together. It may take time, but as Dr. Neupane says, it's time for change. And we believe we should really deal with this corruption issue as a good governance in Nepal. And the time is come, and the general election may come very soon. So it's really, we should deal with the corruption issue. And JICA will support in terms of law supporting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I now request Professor Dharel? I would like to request everyone to be very brief so that we can take maximum questions. We hardly have 5 minutes. So Professor Dharel.
So Pramod sir, can you repeat the question, please?
The question is, how do you look at the case of Nepal? Many countries provide huge assistance to Nepal for rule of law and good governance. Do you think they have been able to install good governance in Nepal?
This is again, I just want to bring what I said before. You know, when the system is not working well, no matter who is in the power, they can misuse. So whatever the amount is coming from other part of the world, whatever the support or the aids or even loan, whatever the amount is coming, when there is no transparency, there is no accountabilities, and there is no responsibilities, and when they have a bland supporter, you know, the bland supporter, they don't care whether it is day or night. When the leaders say it is night, so everyone say it is night. When the leader says it is day, everyone says day. When that system happens, when they have that type of the power that I can do whatever I want, and no one can punish me because the person who is in charge for that area, that guy belongs to me. He must listen to me. He is not going to touch me. When that system, that is a good governance. Do we have that type of independent institutions that one institute can charge to the corrupted person, basically the politician? I'm not saying other people. When the politicians are corrupted, then the whole system is going to be corrupted, because politicians are the leader of the country. And when those leaders, no one can touch them, and they have a big followers, and these followers are closely closing their eyes and just blindly supporting that person, then what do you expect from the rule of law? In the paper, it is mentioned really nice, one of the best constitutions we do have, one of the best system we do have. Has it been applied or implemented? Have you seen any news that is going on? In the middle of the pandemic, whole entire world is, and every country is worried about their own citizens. Are we worried about ourselves? This is the answer. Thank you, sir.
Pratap, sir.
Thank you so much. I have three responses regarding the questions. One is that the one question is related to the gap between the capacity and accountability. So there is significant gap between authority and accountability or capacity at the local level. And because there is no Intergovernmental Relations Act to make the local governments accountable to federal standards of performance, because we have the Kenyan experience on enforcing Intergovernmental Relations Act to make federalism effective from local government perspective. So we need Intergovernmental Relations Act to match the authority, power, and accountability as well as capacity. Second one is there is also always a paradox in governance, whether the political policy positions should be qualified by populism or professionalism, and between the conventional politics or entrepreneurial politics. So at the moment, we need professional politics and entrepreneurial politics to address the problems of performance at the local level, at the provincial level, at the federal level. And third one is, yes, there is the situation of lust for administratorship in political governance that is inclined with management of complexities. And it has almost replaced the leadership in public sector, which should be inclined with managing change and transformation in political governance, and no such dedicated efforts to change this situation has been experienced, has been expected in Nepal at the moment. Thank you so much. I have three critical remarks. So I have responded. If there are any more, so I'm ready to respond. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Kedar, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I think quite rightly, Secretary Pratap Kumar Pathak, you said there are issues at the political and the bureaucracy level also, and also highlighted by Dr. Dharel. The answer to the question is, in my view, is no. The reason it's no, because the foreign aids and donations are coming in, but I don't believe they're going to the right direction, because we know the people in Nepal, as I said, Transparency International already said, more than 60% people Nepal already believe the executive branch of the government and the bureaucracy both are corrupt, and they are not functioning to the response to the need of the people. That's the perception, right? Perception matters a lot in any administration, any policy making. I'm not challenging there is no professionalism in Nepal. There are a lot of educated, learned people capable, but I think we are not addressing the fundamental problem where the problem lies. The problem lies, as Dr. Dharel said, there is a tribalism, there is a populism, as Dr. Secretary Pratap said. So in order to break that cycle, it's a long time, because it's comes from our social development. We need to break the cycle. The cycle can only be break if we invest money in the reform of the education. In Nepal, education system has not been reformed, the public education. People have no access to good education. We must realize all other countries where people have developed, improved, it's because of the reform in the education. And by the way, I want to share with you, our neighboring India during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, I think he enunciated awareness into good governance. That was in the 2014. And they celebrate 2014, 25th December, as to make people aware what governance is saying. In Nepal, we don't have yet, as far as I'm aware of it. Anyway, let me conclude like that. Thank you. Back to you,
Thank you, sir. Now I'm trying to put one question to all the speakers, all the panelists. So the first question is, I'm trying to first I'll share all the questions, then everyone can respond. The first question is for Madam Matsuda. What role can be played by JICA Nepal for compliance, handling, and anti-corruption? I request to all to think differently to overcome such situation, cooperating with CIA and other institutions. Does it possible in upcoming year? The relation between the two countries are marked by friendliness, goodwill, and cooperation. So the question is like how JICA and Nepal can work in the field of corruption. That is the main question. The question for Professor Dharel is that Professor Dharel said, which was also repeated by Mr. Neupane, everything gets politicized in Nepal. So my question is, who politicizes it and for what? Don't you think that those who do not want to share power are the one who politicizes it? So that is for Professor Dharel. There's another question for Pratap sir. Nepal is almost at the top in corruption as per Transparency report. Day by day, donors are pouring more fund for governance. There are new institutions to control it, but the result is not satisfactory. Where does the problem lie? Is it the time to make Transparency International more transparent, or the fund of donors more transparent to check whether they are really doing their job well? So this is for Pratap sir. And last for Neupane sir, you said that good governance also means inclusiveness. Do you think Nepal is inclusive? Do you think Nepal can ever have good governance without being inclusive, as all the state organs has monopoly of one caste?
Thank you very much for the very important comment on the JICA's cooperation with CIA. Really important. And the JICA is providing a training course on anti-corruption, and some CIA officials already participated. That's a small piece of information. And as to the eliminating corruption, as I mentioned, I believe it's a really combined effort, not only CIA, but strengthening of the rule of law is needed. And I believe it may take time, but we should start. And the time has come, considering the fact that the election, general election may come, and we really need to strengthen rule of law as well. Thank you very much.
Professor Dharel.
So my question is what you had asked me about who politicized, right? Again, I want to come back. When there are no hope, there is no hope. And the only ultimate goal to be rich, to be powerful, to generate more resources is politics. People have seen the politician or the leader. 10 years ago, the guy had nothing. Now this guy has so many things. Whereas me, a section officer, a teacher or professor, I've been teaching for the last 30, 40 years. What is my capacity? See, this is the situations. They think that the ultimate goal is to go to politics. When that situation happened, that is why in our country, we have more politicians than general public. Politician means, I'm not saying only leaders. The people are also, either the young generation, either they have gone outside the country, the Middle East or other country, or they are there as a political leader. They are not just a general public. And I am so wondered that a businessman who is considered himself like a billionaire, this guy also wants to be in politics because he sees that politics has a more power. No one can toss to the politician. The other people could be tossed anytime. The business person, those leaders can ask their followers just go and break their industry, break anything. There is no guarantee that the business people are safe compared with the politician. Even local leader, either in the gaonwala leader, if this guy, he strongly oppose and he comes to the street and say, because of our party, we are considered that. And there are so many unemployed people, as Kedar sir mentioned. our education system is bad. We're not following, we're not going towards to the quality. We are just focusing on quantity. Thousands of those people are in the school and the universities. What happened after you, when you finish your Tribhuvan University master degree? There is no job. So market-oriented education system, market-focus-oriented education system, we don't have that. When we don't have market-focused educations, these educated people are frustrated, they are unemployed, they have two options, either stay home or stay in the country or go other country. So that is the reason. So politicians are the main people that they must be controlled. They must, in my case, politics is a profession. Only the good people should go in the politics. Like they saying that I can do it. Not everyone. Everyone cannot be teacher. Everyone cannot be pilot. Everyone cannot be player. Similarly, only the good player must go to the field, and the rest of other people must be kind of audience. And we don't have that. All the audience are in the field. So the game is worse, and everyone's want to be player. So that is the situation happening. So this is why I'm saying here, the politician must be accountable, and this must be responsible. And as I said, we have too many politicians. We must reduce their numbers. Only those people who are people leaders. So, the people leader means the people have supported, people have a trust. That person, and you should not be like a lifelong your career, Once you are done, just leave it. But they don't leave. So that is the situation. Again, thank you, Pramodji.
Thank you, sir. Pratap, sir, please.
Thank you, Pramod sir. Based on the questions, I have the submission that the international development partners should focus on transformative agenda of development and governance instead of bogging down with stability focused or transactional interventions. This is my suggestion. Second one is the cooperation from international development partners should be based on accountability for development results and based on high performing delivering government instead of imposing the self agenda of IDPs. Thank you so much.
It's my turn, I think.
Yes, Kedar, sir, please.
Yes, Pramodji. I think since I'm the last one, let me touch on the all four questions briefly, and I will end in the inclusiveness, what I meant by that. And the role of foreign aid, and including JICA, and as I said, unless you find out the basic fundamental problem why things are not improving, by giving training and advisory services to government bureaucrats, I don't think it's going to help, because people don't change easily because of the system as we have inherited. And partly Dr. Dharel has already said that why. And I would have recommended to JICA, at least I also have worked with JICA, and my former boss was also JICA's patron, Madam Ogata, and I work with her also. So I know very deeply what JICA does, and I have done in Africa also. I will suggest them, if there is a possibility, to work on the awareness of what is the good governance, not only in the government level, but also in the education system, because these are the young generation. We have to build the future, not for the past. We learn from the past and go to the future. That is only one recommendation I will give example. And what Dr. Dharel also said, why we do always politicians, I give an example of one in Africa. In Africa, there is a lot of tribalism, tribal chiefs, etc. So what happens, one of my tribal chiefs were very close. He told me, who goes to the politician? We used to work, I was a young economist those days running around in Africa. He said, doctors, engineers, they go their own do business. In the family, you have to look after your family, farm, etc. So the guy who is the most useless guys, they go to the politics. He said those who are inherit family tradition, he is the best guy. He looks after the family, he stays home, looks after his family, etc. The guy who cannot form anywhere, he cannot do anything, he goes to the politics. He says that's how the politics is run in Africa. So probably it applies in Nepal too. All doctors, engineers have left Nepal because there is no job to do. So what happened that those who have not even done any academics, those who have idea, oh, they're running the politics. That's why politics in Nepal is corrupted. And also not only politics, it's even the, earlier the question came, the parliament is dysfunctional, almost like that. Why? Because I get elected to get my salary, value, so tomorrow I can become a prime minister, minister. We all run around like that. So as a result of what that is, if I'm a parliamentarian, I'm not there to serve the people. I'm there to look after myself. And that's the main problem as far as why? Because if I become minister, if I go that, I earn money. I have this, because that's why the Transparency International, what they say, it is not, it is a reflection of what people said. So as I said, the perception is very important. And then no matter what, we cannot blame donors, because we need to look at ourselves, how we are governing. So we have some fundamental problem in our own society unless we address. I leave it to the judgment of the people, those who are in the power, look at why there is a problem. So that's only the thing. And let me go to the last one, because I will not go because others have touched. Yes, Nepal constitution is lauded globally saying best because 33% of women have a seats. But who are these women? My sister-in-law, okay, my daughter. So, and I nominate. Hardly few people have got elected into the position. So I nominate because there is a proportional representation. So as a result, what happens? I form a faction. I have a tribe now because I have 10, 15 people of my relatives into the parliament. So I form a bloc. So it becomes a power bloc. That is not called inclusiveness. But we pride telling the whole world as if the whole world is stupid, they don't understand. We also look at what it is their governance. As I said already in Mongolia, that is one of the best constitution if you compare, but it is most difficult to implement. So anything best does not necessarily mean it is possible. This also I'm sharing because the first Constitution Assembly, when Constitution was written, I was here in Switzerland. I cannot tell you exactly, but I don't think anybody who is not prominent leader in Nepal who didn't come to visit. Switzerland was very welcoming. They visited, saw the Swiss system. Everybody say we want to make Nepal like a Switzerland. But then by the time they realize Switzerland has a double democracy, and many of us don't even know what the double democracy means. So they realized when they went to Nepal, they didn't build. And then say, let's make a Singapore, all right? So we keep changing our narratives and we run around because we also get glorified. Because if tomorrow we can become like Switzerland, we can become like Hong Kong, we can like Singapore, we are great. But we are not realizing we are not that. We don't work, we don't think. This is where the problem. We are not looking at. So the critical capacity to question that kind of a statement, we need to reform education. That's what I'm saying. And now coming to inclusiveness, education system, when you look at, as I was looking at the Sustainable Development Review, 20% of the dropouts in Nepal schools, they are all from the marginalized groups on poor people. They have no access to education. Those who get in school go, those who can afford, those who have something, those who can afford to go something. And as Dr. Dharel already said, we're focusing on the statistics. Oh, we have 80% of the children have gone to school. Fantastic. We are as good as now Tokyo, as like South Korea. But what we have not realized, those people who are the low strata, they never get to participate. They will never be able to go into the education system. I will share you one example again. During 1960s, many of us, you might know, and King Mahendra introduced that we should introduce Nepali Bhasha across all government schools and in the bureaucracy. So it was decided overnight, implemented. And unfortunately, many parts of Nepal, we didn't even have books in Nepali. I went to school, I read Hindi books. All right. I graduated from the school by reading Hindu books in Nepal because we didn't have, but the people in Kathmandu, which used to be called Nepal, they decided we should have. That's why many people had to go to India to study. A lot of teachers came in Nepal we didn't have, and we have never reformed that again. So this is where the problem comes. We don't address the fundamental problem. We make a lot of statements. That's why trust is not there. And now the inclusiveness is only a matter of theory. A lot of, they have become aware. I know when I was doing the review, the people are aware we should have a role. But even them, when they go, what role, they themselves do not know because nobody had taught them. Nobody has told them. So the NGOs have done a lot of work. People have become aware in Nepal. We know what democracy means, but we don't know what good democracy means. We know what human rights means. We have no idea what the respect for human rights and law. We never practice. This is where that comes in. And I was going back again, back and forth in my own, if you go to the politics, why people follow. The reason is, I need to get things done. In Nepal, everything is Bhagbanda. It's all sharing. Every post is shared. Even bureaucracy is now in the level. There is a Nepali Congress, Male, you just name it. So if I have to go and get things done, unless I have somebody from the politician tells me whom I'm connected with, my work is not done. So what am I supposed to do? So what happens in Nepal? We end up, it's like a circle. It's a vicious circle of poverty. Not only, it's a politician. This is why the Dr. Dharel was saying, we cannot get things done unless I'm part of certain political system in Nepal. So the bureaucracy also doesn't function. That's why Transparency International report, I value that very much because all over the world, what Transparency International report comes is more or less correct. How come it is incorrect in Nepal only? Are we again out of the blue? We didn't come from the moon. We are also same because it is a globalization. We are interconnected everywhere. So the world has changed. The context is different. We always need to analyze context. That's why the reform will not be successful if it comes from the top. It must be grassroots level. So that's all I want to say. Thank you, and back to Dr. Pramod.
Thank you, sir. Distinguished panelists and dear participants, finally we have come to the end of the program. We still have lots of questions, but we are running out of time. We'd like to thank all our speakers for their candid responses. May I now request Mr. Mitra Bandhu Paudel, Vice President of CDD, to deliver a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Jaiswal. Respected Chair, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we discussed on good governance and international cooperation. We have the esteemed panel of experts, including Ms. Noriko Matsuda, the good governance experts of JICA, Professor Tulsi Dharel from Centennial College, Toronto, Mr. Pratap Kumar Pathak, former Secretary, Government of Nepal, and Mr. Kedar Neupane, Executive Member of Nepal Policy Institute. And this program is chaired by Ambassador Mohan Krishna Srestha, the founder, President, CDD, and former Nepali ambassador to France, and the program moderated by Dr. Jaiswal. So first of all, I would like to thank Ambassador Mohan Krishna Srestha, the founder president of CDD, for chairing this session and highlighting the series of things in terms of good governance. I also would like to thank all the speakers, and especially the takeaway from this discussion, starting with Ms. Noriko, that she highlighted the Japanese JICA's contributions, especially in legal part of Nepal and developing the modern laws in Nepal. And her Japanese experience was significant. And she briefly touched upon the corruption thing, and there should be combined effort to combat corruption. That's what I learned from her presentation. Thank you, Ms. Noriko, for your wonderful speech. And Professor Dharel, what I have learned from Professor Dharel was like good systems should be put in place to strengthen the governance. And we can see the example of Singapore, South Korea, Thailand. These are the good examples. And it is not a person, it is the system that leads the nation. And in such a case, development is not that far, but where it's unfortunate to note that Nepal is not heading towards that direction. That's the the takeaway from Professor Dharel. Thank you, sir, for your very pragmatic presentation. Um, and former Secretary Pratap Kumar Pathak highlighted the determinants of good governance, and it is the most challenging topic as well. And he in his presentation, the negative connotation of international cooperation is the source of corruption. And I was really impressed by his statement that we are witnessing Bhut Tower syndrome in Nepal. This, in my view, is the most important statement by Mr. Pathak. And thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation. And Kedar Neupane highlighted the good governance should ensure the human right and transparency. And we have laws, but they are not implemented properly. Instead of top-down approach, we need to do the bottom-up approach, and government unity should be taken as family, but in our context, everything is politicized, and we are good at changing our narratives, but we are very poor in reforming our education system. So the most important thing is we need to reform our education system, and problem lies in the cycle, be it in the tribalism or any other forms. And yeah, and this is very good. In my opinion, this is very learning lesson from Mr. Neupane, and he rightly highlighted the perception of corruption, and that is very important. Perception towards corruption is very important, and Nepal should learn from it. Instead of blaming to Transparency International or any other agencies, it's better to implement, and there should be accountability and accountability in our governance system. So these are few things that I remember from Mr. Neupane's remarks. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful speech. So having said these things, I would like to thank the entire team of Nepal Policy Institute, especially Khagendra Dhakalji, and also Nemun, Mr. Janak Sapkota. I can see a lot of friends from JICA and also a lot of friends from CDD. Thank you all distinguished participants. Thank you, Dr. Jaiswal, for your wonderful moderation of this program. And I believe this program really highlight the topical importance of the present time, governance, and the cooperation of international agencies also. I believe that CDD in the coming days also will come up with other topical topic for further discussions, and I'm sure we'll see you all in our upcoming webinar as well. Thank you very much for this program.